This is your weekly Las Vegas housing market update, and this week the market was basically in wait and see mode. Interest rates stayed relatively steady as investors get ready for Kevin Warsh's first Federal Reserve meeting as Fed chair. And when we talk about the Fed, here's what really matters for buyers and sellers. The Fed doesn't directly set mortgage rates, but what they say about inflation, the economy, and future policy can absolutely move the bond market, and that impacts interest rate trends. Now, the biggest pressure point right now is still oil. The ongoing conflict involving Iran has kept energy prices elevated, and that matters because oil affects almost everything: gas, shipping, transportation, food costs, and business expenses. When energy prices rise, inflation fears rise too. And when inflation fears rise, long term interest rates usually have a harder time moving lower. This week's CPI inflation report showed headline inflation moving back up to 4.2%, which is the highest we've seen in a few years. A big reason for that was energy, with gas and oil prices putting pressure on the overall number. But here's the important part: core CPI, which removes food and energy, only rose slightly for the month and came in better than expected. So the headline number looked scary, but the underlying inflation picture was a little more calm than it seemed at first glance. That's the kind of nuance the bond market pays attention to. We also saw strong demand at Treasury auctions this week, which is actually helpful. It means investors are still looking to buy bonds at these levels, and that can help put a ceiling on how high long term rates go. One key level markets are watching is the 10-year Treasury around 4.60%. Historically, when it moves above that area, it usually struggles to stay there for long. That doesn't guarantee rate drops, but it does suggest we may be close to the upper end of this rate cycle. So, what does this mean for the Las Vegas housing market? Of course, buyers are still very payment sensitive, and sellers need to understand that pricing strategy matters more than ever. The homes that are clean, well priced, and marketed correctly are still getting attention. I've even seen multiple offers, but buyers are being thoughtful. Looking ahead, the Fed meeting is the main event. Markets will be listening closely to Kevin Warsh's tone, especially on inflation, future rate policy, and whether the Fed changes how much guidance it gives investors. Bottom line, inflation is still the main story. Oil is still creating pressure, and the Fed's next message could shape where rates go from here. I'm Yessie Taylor with the Taylor Group, bringing you weekly updates on the Las Vegas housing market, real estate trends, and interest rates.